Welcome to the Why Not podcast, a motivational podcast where we discuss ideas behind innovation and change. I'm your host, Noah Cisneros, and I'm excited to have you here to meet some incredible people, discuss some life-changing ideas, and to have a fantastic time learning and growing together. Today on the Why Not podcast, we welcome Kevin Townsend, Managing Director of Williams, Townsend, Stout Wealth Management of Raymond James and Associates. Kevin is a seasoned leader with over 25 years of experience guiding clients toward financial freedom and peace of mind. From his early days at Zion's Investment Securities to 2 decades at Merrill Lynch, and now at Williams, Townsend, Stout Wealth Management of Raymond James and Associates, Kevin has built a career on trust, consistency, and deep human connection. His journey isn't just about markets and portfolios. It's about people, purpose, and the pursuit of a meaningful life. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. That is a quote from the Roman Stoic Seneca, and it lays the foundation for today's conversation. And I am absolutely thrilled to have you here, Kevin. I'd like to start from the beginning as we dive into your incredible insight and lessons that you have learned and are kind enough to share with us today. What first drew you into the world of finance? How did you find yourself in the world of finance?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, let me just tell you, I'm honored to be here. Noah, I think that you and I have grown over the last couple of years in going to MBA school together. And you're wicked smart. And so I appreciate this for you and your listeners. And hopefully I've got something worthwhile sharing with everybody. But around the world of finance, how did I get into that? I don't think that there's like one specific spot to say that's it. But I think that Steve Jobs said that it's difficult to forward look and forecast, but you can always go back and connect the dots and see this is how you got to where you're at. And that's true for me. I was a young kid, like in junior high, believe it or not. And my dad, we didn't have any money, like, no money, but my dad like traded a couple stocks. And back then you had to look to see what the stock did in the newspaper the next day. And I'd always watch my dad like with this newspaper, and he traded a couple different stocks, and he started telling me a little bit of what a stock was, and that kind of got me curious. Years later, I met a buddy of mine, and his dad was a financial advisor, planner, told me what he did. I thought that was really cool that he had to help people with their money. Someone told me, like, man, you're really good with people. You should go into like some sort of sales thing. Like, awesome. I'm in college and I'm going to school full time, working full time at a bank. And I thought banking was not for me. No knock to anybody, because for some people that do it, they love it. Like, good for you. Wasn't for me. And I got into investments and just kind of it looking back, it utilizes all my skills. I feel like good with people. I love finance. I'm a person that needs to be constantly engaged with stuff, and the financial markets never sleep. What's going on in Asia affects Europe, it affects us. So there you go. So that's kind of how I got there. It wasn't one particular moment.
Well, that's a beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing that and walking us through your journey of how you've arrived where you're at. In the introduction for the episode, I talk about the different firms that you work for, and you've worked for some really big names in the investment world. And I appreciate your willingness to be on the podcast and to share
Sure.
your insight. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate that story.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Of course. Over that time, though, like you mentioned, like from seeing your dad trading stocks and getting the updates in the newspaper to where you are now, I'm curious how your definition of success has either evolved or changed or maybe not changed. Like, I'd love to know how you view that as you've gone through these different steps in your career.
Yeah, Noah, I'm an older man than you, and so with that comes some wisdom. But so I think when I was younger, I used to think about wealth and success almost simultaneously, overlapping, kind of synonymous with one another. And I don't think that's the case anymore. What used to be success for me was just having a lot of money, just kind of Scrooge McDuck piles of gold and money, that you had. And I look at that now as to say, it's not. In my mind, wealth and success, it's not about crass materialism as much as it's multifaceted. It is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. It is finding richness and exploring opportunities and being with people and having, I think, also a balance in life of like working and feeling that fulfillment of success and being driven, but then also stepping back and saying, like, I need to enjoy this moment a little bit. I think true success is like knowing who you are and also who you're not, and then utilizing the resources that you have to be able to overlay that and help others. And the last thing I think is probably like aligning your wealth with how you see the world and like your vision of life. That's a big deal for me. I mean, if you look at like someone like Bill Gates, uber successful, he's super involved with his foundation, and it's not because doesn't have anything to do. I think he's involved with that because it's aligning his wealth and his value system to be able to make a difference and kind of lift while he still climbs. And that's what I
Right.
would say that true success is all of that. It's multifaceted. It's having a richness and happiness, lifting while you climb, like I said, and knowing who you are and who you're not, and aligning all of that together.
Well said. Would you say that's how you would define true wealth? Is like that alignment of your values and your wealth and your
Yeah.
finances?
Yeah. Because otherwise it's like you could be extremely financially successful and be a miserable person. And I've
Mm,
traveled the world enough to see people that literally live in dirt poor conditions, and they're some of the happiest people that I've seen and know. And they have no exposure to anything outside of their tiny little village in, you know, Peru, or a tiny little village in Africa, or it's like that's all that they see, and they're exceptionally happy. So I'm like, imagine you could have both. Imagine you could have a financial stability
mm,
coupled with you can now be satisfied and help align whatever interest may, whether that's helping other people or it's education or if it's health related issues or human rights, like whatever your deal is, you're like, I have the ability to use my power and influence to go help other people in that regard. And I have financial stability. I don't have to worry about day to day stuff. In my mind, that's true success, true
yeah,
wealth.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's a few powerful insights that you shared there that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more. One is you mentioned like as you've traveled and as you've worked and advised several different people throughout your career, you've seen some people that are wealthy and miserable, and some people that are broke and poor and financially have less access and are super happy. And
Yeah.
you were explaining that you mentioned that they don't the ones that are happy maybe don't have as much visibility towards all of the options that are out there in the world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
I'm curious from your perspective, how much of a role does that play when we think about like social media and people maybe
Right.
flaunting all of their financial success? How does that weigh in terms of evaluating true wealth and aligning that with our values?
Man, I mean, that's such a great question. And it's something I'm kind of passionate about this, but I believe, the more that I've explored the world a little bit, and there's people that have traveled a gazillion times over than I have, and there's some that have traveled less. So I'm somewhere in the middle of all that. But my observation is this: when we start to buy in the narrative of marketing efforts and we've got to have more and better, and last year's holiday gifts were not good for this, and our last year's holiday decorations, we got to throw those out and get the new ones, and we're on this treadmill now of just chasing stuff.
Mm,
And when we get fed this information on social media or all the commercials that we see, or we're keeping up with the Joneses or whatever, as opposed to saying, this is who I am. This is my skill set. This is what I bring. This is what makes me happy. Like, do more of that and less of trying to go chase something that you are trying to chase cotton candy to go fill you up. It's unsustainable. And by doing so, I used to think like it's the next trip, it's the next car, it's the next whatever. that was going to bring me happiness. And we kind of teach that, I think, a little bit as a culture, right? You got to get the new cell phone, you got to have the new laptop, you got to have the new car, and then you're going to be happy. And it's like, well, maybe for a hot second, and then that way fades. So not believing the noise and being strong enough to say, no, this is good enough for me, and I don't need 92 pairs of jeans to be happy. I think you see a lot of other countries, they might have a couple pairs of shoes, as opposed to like we need to have a closet full of shoes. And that again, that quest for materialism and just doing all that, I don't think that makes someone happier, man. Just doesn't.
Hmm.
The next house isn't going to make you
Yeah.
happier. If you're miserable in this house, you're going to be miserable in the next house too.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. And it's very helpful, especially as a younger professional, and as most of the listeners of this podcast are younger professionals, and it's something that's very easy to get caught up in and
Billion
to
percent.
focus on being chasing rather than maybe being driven by those values that, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Being driven, people are on the quest to conquer the next thing, not because of to add to the pile of stuff, but it's like, no, they're on the quest to a bigger cause, right? It's whatever it is. And yeah, we get caught up in comparing, right, all the time. It's something we do in our society, I think, is like, well, so and so got a house, and like, how many square feet is their house, and how fast is your car, and how new is your car? And I mean, literally, these are things
Yeah.
that we're talking about. I have come back from trips before, and they could be great trips, and someone's like, well, where's your next trip? And I'm like, dude, I still have jet lag, from my previous trip, like I don't know yet. And so we're, again, it's like constant quest for something, as opposed to saying, I know what I've got, and I'm going to be really content with that. Not that we can't be driven from something more. It's just not in the materialistic way, or what I think marketing groups want us to kind of buy into.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with being driven by like financial stability and money and wealth. But like to your point, it's going beyond the commercialized consumer fanaticism almost. Like when you're just so focused
So
on
think
that.
about this. Like, I used to think about this, Noah, as like, let's say someone is just driven purely on a monetary basis, and awesome. No one stays number one on the Forbes top wealthiest people in the world year in and year out every single year. You just don't. That number's changing. So if you're constantly comparing yourself and you're allowing somebody else to validate you by whatever it is you have, and that makes you feel good, as opposed to you feel good about what you have, now I'm giving power to everybody else to make me think like I am something, I am successful, or I'm not. So instead,
Mm.
it's like, my point is with all of this is like finding that contentment inside of you, be driven, but just know that it is, just don't buy all of the sizzle, I guess is my point.
I like that. That should be a headline. As a
The
marketer, it's like, ooh,
t-shirt,
don't
right?
buy all
Don't
the
buy
sizzle.
all the sizzle. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that insight. And yeah, that's you mentioned like not getting caught up in the noise, and throughout your career, you like, and especially in the industry in which you work, like the
Mm-hmm.
financial and especially on the investment side industry can be really high stakes and high pressure. There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure that can be in that world, especially as you're advising your clients on how to manage that money and how to either align it with their values or
Right.
how to grow it. There's a lot of volatility there. I'd love to know how you've stayed grounded as you've gone through either market changes or dealt with the pressure within that space.
Yeah. I will tell you, going back to young listeners, like when I first started in this business, it was, I got in on kind of like the very tail end of the run up in like 1998, 99, and the stock market was just going gangbusters. And I thought I understood what volatility was. And then 2000 happened, and the market just blew up, and we had this tech market bubble that blew up, and it was difficult. So I've seen those. I've seen the great financial crisis. I've seen all different changes in presidency and wars break out, and 9/11, and all these moments where you have just just markets that collapse and the markets that soar. And what I've discovered is that there's no substitute for experience. You can read about it in a book, you can hear it from your parents or grandparents, but until you're actually living those moments, you don't really understand what it's like. And so for me, I would say, I jokingly tell one of my business partners all the time, I'm like, dude, I am so sick of living history. People are always like, this is a historic event. This has never happened before. And I'm like, oh man, like I am like battle tested and just like exhausted with thinking of here's another lesson in history. But I think that there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. And one of the things that we look at is we typically in cultures, by and large, will look at people that are older and they're wise. And I just think that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is that wisdom is the correct application of knowledge, right? I know something, but it's another thing to say I know it and I do it, right? As a
Yeah.
little kid, you might have said, like, everyone's told me the stove's hot, don't touch the stove. I tell you what, you get wisdom really fast when you touch a hot stove and you burn yourself, like, that's what they mean. And so I think that's the same thing as that when I was younger, I mean, I would wake up during the stock market, blow up of 2000, the tech bubble. I'd wake up and find out what Japan was doing and their futures markets and their markets, and then I would look at like what Europe was doing, and then that kind of set the stage for what my day was going to be like in the United States. Now, when things happen, it's like, no, I can sleep fine because I have the wisdom to say, look, I know we're going to go get through this. Like, whatever it is, I don't know how long, if it takes 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, I don't know, but like, we'll get through this. And so, with that, I think that's what helps ground me is just having time in the seat and a little bit of wisdom.
That's powerful. The distinction between the wisdom and knowledge and being able to apply your insights and what you learned in the appropriate manner with the right action. It reminds me of a quote I heard the other day, and I'll look it up so I can cite it correctly because I don't remember who said it. But essentially, he said it where you don't want your learning to lead to knowledge because you'll just be a fool. But if you let your
That's it.
learning lead to action, you'll be wealthy.
And that's the same concept, right? Is that wisdom, you're applying what you know, it leads to the correct action. So I would, that was better said than what I just said. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I might steal that
No,
from
no,
you.
no. Not at all. It's just it reminded me of that concept, and it's this idea where that wisdom is gained as you use it correctly, not necessarily just knowing more and more and reading more
No,
and
like
more
you're,
books.
dude, you are so good at, like, you read so much, and to be able to retrieve that quote or something, like, and you're a deep thinker, so your listeners benefit from your deep thinking on this. I'm just going to tell you, like, it's cool that you can retrieve all of that pretty quickly. That's a
Well,
gift. That's a superpower. If somehow you can have a consciousness in a learning moment and just say, like, I'm going to take, furious notes here as to what am I going to learn from this in this dark moment. It's not even just financial moments, like whatever in your life, like this is a big learning moment, man. Like, be awake here, take some notes. What am I learning? So that you can retrieve that later. And you're like, that's how the wisdom is gained.
I'd like to know, as you've led teams through market crashes, economic booms, cultural shifts, like you were mentioning, you've gained wisdom through your experience of seeing all these different trends and shifts within history or repeats in history. I'd like to know what those moments have taught you about leading and leadership during uncertainty.
Yeah. One of the things I've tried to do, and I'm better sometimes than others, but the goal is to, when things get chaotic, is to turn off emotion. And the thing is, and it doesn't mean to be heartless, it just means to say, look, any decision that someone, in my mind, when someone makes a decision emotionally, whether that's euphoria or pessimism, those are never good outcomes, right? Never good. And we do that sometimes, right? Financially speaking, markets keep going up and up and up, and it was like, oh, this is never going to come down. It's like a euphoric decision, like probably not the best. And when markets are just so negative, people are like, this is never coming back. Can't, like, neither of those are good decision points. And I would say the same thing can hold true in any other decision that you make in your life. So I
Mm.
try to remain unemotional, and then that helps me to execute without emotion, and then that helps you make a better decision. And some of the things that I try to do as well is that you can anticipate sometimes financial markets or things in life is to say, like, what are we going to do if we have another terrorist attack on our soil? What are we going to do if tariffs do affect the market? What if we turn out and they find out that administrations can't put on tariffs and all of this has to get unwound? Like, what are we going to do? Let's make that decision now in anticipation of, and then we're making it unemotional as well. And I call that the lifeboat drill. And I'll do this with clients. I'll do this with myself. I call it the lifeboat drill because I had this epiphany one time on a cruise ship. It's like I'm a big cruiser, but I was on a cruise ship, and all of a sudden we are at the dock, and they have everybody go find your life jacket and to report to your muster station, so they know that you know where you're supposed to go if this boat goes down. And I jokingly said they do this when the boat is at the dock. We're not even out in the water. Like, they're doing it right against the, it's completely unemotional. They don't want to do this test in the middle of the ocean or if the boat's sinking, like, everybody, get to your muster station. Like, no. So go have a lifeboat drill periodically and just say, look, what would I do if this was to happen? What would I do if that was to happen? How would I pivot? And then that just helps you to make an unemotional decision. And I think that that is one of the greatest things a leader can do, because what's not good is if you're in a leadership role and you buy into the euphoria and don't plan for a negative outcome ever, or if you're so pessimistic and we're all like scared of the boogeyman or woman under the bed and you're freaking out too, like that doesn't, that's not going to help. Imagine like your kids are freaked out about the boogeyman or woman under the bed and you freak out too, it's like that's not good.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably one of the greatest things you can do as a leader is plan, try to revisit the plan, do a lifeboat drill when it's unemotional. And then in those moments, you can kind of help execute better. And the last
I
thing I'd say
appreciate
with
that. That
that, when you're in the moment, Noah, of something bad, invariably there's going to be things that are feeding the euphoria or they're going to feed the pessimism, right? You can watch certain financial networks, and when the markets are going down, they parade everybody through that thinks that the markets are never going to go up again. And then when the markets are soaring, they parade everybody through on why this is never going to come down and why it's a different time period. You get your algorithm feeds that to you on certain media outlets and things so you're kind of in this death spiral down or this euphoric spiral up, and one of the things you kind of have to do is just turn off that noise. I am not going to allow that noise to deviate me. And there's some like Greek
mm,
mythology story where there were these sirens that were in this cove, and people would sail their boat through the cove area, and these sirens had these beautiful angelic voices, and they would like lure the sea captains over and deviate from their course, and they would like crash on the rocks below and everybody would sink and drown. Well, one of the guys in the Greek mythology story, I can't remember his name, I'd give him credit, maybe it's Odysseus or something, like strapped himself to the mast and told all of his people to say, put wax in your ears and do not deviate from the course that we're on. Sirens come about. He's screaming out crazy commands to change the ship's direction. They don't listen, and the ship sails safely through. I say there's no
yeah.
shortage of sirens in this world that will deviate you from the path, particularly financially, that's going to cause you to train wreck. All of a sudden, you get away from how you've invested and you get blown off that course and this course or whatever. So, in those moments, sometimes you just have to turn off the TV, say, I'm not listening to social media because I'm getting sucked into the emotion of this. And then that feeds the beast that's not going to be good.
Mm. It's about having that anchor
Yeah,
and
right.
being consistent through the storm, being calm through the storm, rather than chasing every trend or growth hack or too good to be
Right.
true.
Right. Right. All of it. You're just blown off course wherever. Sometimes you're like, man, I just gotta turn off the TV, and I've done it. There are days
Hmm.
like during bad markets, I have gone home and not known what the market did that day. And people are like, could you do that? I'm like, honestly, it's because it's a deviation. It can cause me to get emotional about something. Like, no, stay on target, stay on target.
That's powerful, especially as we consider like how you were mentioning earlier, the difference between wealth and happiness and aligning
Mm,
values with that wealth, right? Like that helps on the positive side, but then also from what I'm learning from you is it can also protect you from maybe the negative side of the emotions and the fear in those turbulent times and being able to make the correct strategic decision
yes,
because there is that difference between all your happiness being tied purely to your financial metrics or however you want to define your money,
yeah,
because then you can be more long-term focused as you navigate through those emotions.
exactly
Am I
right.
hearing that correctly? Is that kind of what you're
Exactly. What
awesome?
you're doing is like you're not letting the day-to-day ups and downs of the market determine what you
Mm,
need to go do long term. Yeah.
that's beautiful. It's obviously very impactful on a personal level, but also I feel like from a business perspective, we need a lot more of that, a lot
Yeah,
more of
right?
that long-term perspective.
Yeah.
I'm curious as people figure out, okay, like if we want to have this anchor, if we want to have our consistent path, how do they develop that path? How do they develop what's going to serve as their anchor, as that boat as they're going through the storm?
Wow, man, that is a deep question. I think it has to like go to the fact that you have to understand who you are and who you're not again.
Mm,
And to say, okay, what is it that brings me true joy and happiness and what doesn't?
mm,
And then you start to build more of those days. Imagine for a moment if I said, Noah, what's your perfect day? And you're like, I like to wake up in the morning at a certain time and I get my workout in or I sleep in or whatever your deal is. And then this is what I do for my lunch and here's my dinner and here's what I do in between that brings me satisfaction and I'm volunteering, I'm working, I love to read, like whatever your stuff is, imagine you could just do that more, right? And then therefore it's like that starts to set the anchor and what you start to do is you start to develop some patterns
mm.
and those patterns help create a longer term plan and that's how you just kind of execute, I think, on that. And that's what helps you have those anchors. So even when chaos exists, right, I still got my pattern because that brings me happiness. And yeah, things are coming down around me and chaotic, but I can still remain somewhat steady because this is kind of my pattern that brings me happiness,
I get that adds towards the value of patience that we talked about earlier.
which I'm
And
terrible at.
and
Just, yeah, I'm terrible at it. Yeah.
well, you must be pretty good at maybe detaching from that and navigating well, despite being frustrated with the need for patience. Like, because as you're
I'm not
sharing all
patient with
this
myself,
insight,
I think. I'm not patient with myself is probably a more accurate thing. I can be patient with other people, I can be patient with markets. Myself, it's like I'm probably not super patient with.
well, there's value to that too. I think there's a need for self compassion, but then there's also like you have this drive, and it's very contagious, and you have a way of being very optimistically driven. I'd say at least from the outside looking in and hearing your perspective. And I know for myself, like sometimes patience, the lack of patience can help that.
Yeah, true, true. It kind of creates a fire in the bosom, right? And you
Yeah.
kind of you've got that gut burning desire to go do something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
So
exhausting
yeah,
and it can be,
amen. It's exhausting and also can be good. It's like it's an Achilles heel until you learn how to make it better, or it's a dragon you have to learn to tame. But you're right. It's two edged.
yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. Yeah. It's a double edged sword. I
Yeah.
love it. I'd a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our listeners are younger professionals who are really
Yeah.
looking to get their feet grounded and figure out their direction for their life. A lot of the topics that we discuss on this podcast are around the innovation and the growth, that personal development.
Uh-huh.
If you could give one piece of practical advice on where to start, be that with figuring out your values, your anchor, financial security, where would you recommend they start?
So people that are, if I understand this correctly, you're saying like someone's younger, what advice would you kind of give to them as you're kind of starting out some financial security to gain that down the road? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think particularly today, man, the more and more I hear it from two sides. I hear it from an older generation that looks at like children and grandchildren and like, man, I don't know how they're going to be able to afford a home. I don't know how they're going to be able to do this or that or the other. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just jump out of this building I'm in right now. I also will hear from younger people that feel the same way. And the one thing that I would say is, as dumb as this sounds, I would say have hope. Sometimes our mind wants to go anchor on something. And I think that we do, we have a tendency to do sometimes is that we anchor ourselves in the present and we try to extrapolate the future, right? If things go as they are right now, we're never going to be able to get into a home, or if we're in this spot right now, we're never going to have the market turn around again, or if this keeps happening, we're going to be at zero on the S&P 500. Oh, okay, well, whatever it is, like I would say have hope, and then don't anchor in the present and just think like you've got the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life figured out. You don't. You could go back in your life right now, Noah, and anybody listening, to say, go back 5 years ago. Did you think that you're going to be doing whatever it is you're doing right now 5 years ago? I know I can answer and say no. Like that wasn't me. I've changed career paths. I've gotten remarried. I've gotten like all different kinds of things. Bought a house, remodeled, traveled to different places. I didn't think like none of this. That's just 5 years. So sometimes like you're 25, you're 30, and you think like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna be able to retire. I'm like, dude, that is 40 years from now. Like a lot is gonna happen. So, have some hope. Um, I would say that don't anchor in the present and extrapolate the future. And realize that when we see moments like this that's going on right now, I've heard so many times people say, my gosh, this time is different. 9/11, literally, these are the talk about anchoring in the present. 9/11, people were saying, dude, we're never going to fly in planes again. That's it. Like the airline industry, they are done. Never going to go. And I'm like, really? Because I like airlines are packed. Look at COVID just recently. Like, we're never going out to eat again. These restaurants are going to shut down. Like, you're at a waiting list to places, right? We've changed and evolved, and maybe we're delivering more food, and things have evolved and changed that we don't even know. So, it in a dumb way, realize that things rhyme and change. I've heard of right now AI. Everyone's like, we're going to lose all these jobs. No one's going to have a job ever. I'm like, all right, maybe. I mean, could be. But what if not? Because I can tell you when the cotton gin was invented during the Industrial Revolution, they thought jobs are over. Like machines are going to do it. It's like, no, it just evolved and different jobs came about. Computers came about. We have a difference there. Everything comes about at a certain time period. Like, that's it. That's it for this. Not the case. When online trading came available, people were like, well, no more financial advisors. It's like, no, my job's more valuable now. So just one thing I tell younger people all the time, constantly set yourself up to be learning. Learn to love learning because we live in a world that is constantly evolving and changing. And the days of like, I just went to the factory and I just turned a wrench like all day, it's like probably not it. Like learn to love learning because it's evolving. And if you do that, you're always going to find yourself in a position to be employable. And it could be that's like, great, a robot's going to take my job. Well, cool. Then why don't you evolve and reposition that you're going to be the person that's the robot tech, and you're going to like learn to develop the robot or work on the robot or whatever it is. But no, like during people's lifetime on this call, their parents had a switchboard operator. You just have to pick up the phone and talk to somebody and say, connect me with Noah. And they're like, oh, sounds great. My parents had a line that was shared with 4 people. Like that was not that long ago, man. We were traveling
Yeah.
on this country in railroads. Like there was an elevator operator. You'd go in and the person would close the door for you and they would announce what was on every floor in the department store because we couldn't operate the elevator. My elevator in my building, you don't even touch a button. It just calls for you, right? So don't be afraid to continue to evolve is my point. And don't anchor in the present and think like, oh my gosh, AI is going to take all of our jobs or the market's never going to get better or what. It's like, no, have some hope and realize things are going to change. How was that for a soapbox moment? Like
That was
man,
amazing.
wow.
That was awesome. Yeah. No, I'm just taking this in. I appreciate that. I think it's fair to say a good way to summarize that powerful advice is
Dude,
to
that was a
anchor in hope.
sermon, bro. That was a sermon.
Preach.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. It's powerful. And it's a message we desperately need right now. Like everyone
Yeah.
needs it right now. Is that power of hope and that need for hope.
And
And so I
every time
appreciate
someone
you.
says it's different, it's not necessarily different, Noah, because it rhymes with something else. We've seen it in history, right? It just rhymes with something like right now we're in an AI race globally. Well, guess what? In the 80s, it was a global arms race. And before that, in the 60s, it was a race for outer space, right? We were first one to launch rockets, first one to get to the moon. That was a race that went on for decades, right? And then we had the arms race. Who could have the most nuclear warheads? And then now we're just in this AI race of like who can do it the best and all that. So again, things rhyme. History's good.
Powerful. Be a student of history. That's what I'm
Yeah.
learning right now. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Kevin, I appreciate your willingness to be on the podcast, to share your insight and for all the good that you do. I know you've like in the MBA program, you've done the coffee with the coach. You've been very involved and active in sharing your advice to those who are looking to grow. And so I appreciate you and for what you do for the community
Of
and for what
course.
you do for everyone. So I appreciate that. I'd love
I
to ask
appreciate
you our
you. Thank
concluding
you.
question. Oh,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Lay it on me.
We've talked a little bit about happiness.
Uh-huh.
Something that helps me gain insight is I ask all of my guests what happiness means to them. And I notice some trends, but everyone has their own personalized version. And as we talk about aligning values to wealth and all of that, I love to know for Kevin, like what does happiness mean to Kevin?
Wow. Happiness to me, I think, means being content with myself. I think it means to be, for me, I find the greatest happiness in serving and loving other people. I jokingly say like if I believed in reincarnation, like if I could come back like as an Italian grandmother and like make pasta sauce all day for my family, it's like I love that. So I mean, being able to be in a position where I can serve and love other people means a lot to me and it feeds my soul and my battery. I think happiness is being content with myself when I can have those moments where I'm quiet with myself for years and years and years that it's loud, man. My head gets loud and sometimes those are demons that I'm battling. It's like not good. Happiness is like there's not that many demons. And I think also being able to see the world, that brings me great happiness is that I the more I travel, the more I see we get the same problems, whether it's Estonia or Ethiopia or Erie, Pennsylvania. It's like what you name it, like they're similar problems. And so that's what I think happiness means to me is being around people I love, being able to help those that I love, and finding fulfillment in that. And then rinse and repeat until dead. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I
Thanks,
appreciate that.
man.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks,
It's
buddy. I
powerful.
appreciate you.
Where can people go if they want to learn more about you? They want to connect with Kevin.
Oh, that's a good question. So, I mean, simple as Googling our team is Williams Townsend Stout Wealth Management of Raymond James. And you can find all our bios there. You can find out our approach to investing. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And so those are probably the greatest ways to find us.
Okay, wonderful.